If you are in your late 40s or 50s and have been a creative professional in your career, the undercurrents of terror are being felt as you might be wondering where your next paycheck will come from, or it's becoming a cutthroat competition as a freelancer. I am talking about all the creative fields in which a Gen X has pioneered, from publishing to photography to filmmaking, and you name it. The generation that should technically be living their glory peak in their careers are grieving the days they fought so hard to keep up with. Gen X are experiencing a sort of career meltdown in a sector they championed and cheered with technological advancements once upon a time. Hello everyone, my name is Goldie and I'm your host for this episode.
And I'm Lakshan, your very sick co-host, and this is episode 32 of Mind the Gen Gap podcast.
In today's episode, I want to pay homage to a generation that stepped into the world of media or image making in the 90s, whether in magazine publishing, newspaper journalism, photography, graphic design, advertising, music, film, or television. There's a strong likelihood that they've since transitioned to a different career. This shift is largely due to significant reductions or drastic changes within these industries, often leaving behind individuals whose skills were once highly sought after. You may remember the Writers Guild of America strike in 2023. They demanded higher royalties, mandatory staffing of TV writing rooms, and safeguards to their jobs from the use of artificial intelligence. This is one example of how such jobs have felt a threat. And there are so many stories of talented individuals that have gone from art to admin, left with no choice because influencers and algorithms of AI have taken over. In part one, I will address how this happened and are we getting a wake-up call for other professions that could feel the same impact moving forward? Part two, we will discuss how Gen X are moving forward in this crisis. Now, I can appreciate that maybe perhaps this may not be such a relatable reality for many of you, given that today we have accepted the role of an influencer, a word that, by the way, did not even exist 20 years ago, to replace that of a videographer, photographer, or the advertising executive, a 3-in-1, quite literally. And to add to this, with AI progressing at lightning speed, our traditional copywriters too have it tough. It is predicted by the year 2030, ad agencies in the USA will lose 32,000 jobs, or 7.5% of the industry's workforce to what? Technology. This data comes from research done by the firm Forrester. I want to focus on one area of the arts because there are so many, and it's because of my personal favoritism for this one. I think you will all agree this has also seen the maximum shifts over the last 2 decades. Photography. It's transitioned to digital. This has meant that photo lab technicians, manual retouchers are now as outdated as the abacus. The prevalence of smartphone cameras and user-friendly editing tools has made those with traditional expertise appear almost nostalgic. Let me tell you a story. I personally remember in the 90s when photographers had a reputation for specific types of photography, and they were celebrity names, handpicked by supermodels and the likes. It was inspiring to buy coffee table books with their work and pull cutouts from glossy magazines that served many of us Gen Xers as posters for our walls. I distinctly recall being in awe of Hugo Boss model shoots that adorned center pages of magazines like Vogue and Marie Claire. You can imagine, as a teenager, this was the equivalent of what today would be Instagram. Now, what struck me as I did my research was the status of fame these photographers had through their careers, such as Lindenberg, the man who shot all the supermodels in the 90s, Annie Leibovitz, notoriously famous for that one photo of Yoko Ono and John Lennon from the day he was murdered. These mentioned photographers are actually boomers who were killing it in the 90s. So, as an aspiring Gen X, You could not help but hope to become like one of them one day. And one such British photographer did. Corinne Day. She was the woman who discovered Kate Moss, sans makeup. If you all know the world of modeling, Kate Moss was the iconic 90s discovery, and she blew up the covers of multiple magazines after that. Day, however, sadly passed away in 2010 at only 48. I wonder how her career would be today had she been alive. They earned five-figure shoots, so we're talking thousands of US dollars. And today, a shoot can become as accessible to any professional where a 20-year-old will do the job for you for as little as 500 US dollars. Lakshan, you and I have both worked with photographers who are millennials and Gen Z. How are you seeing the difference between what was and what is?
So I don't know the difference between what was and what is. I can't speak for what was
Mm.
because as you were talking about all these celebrity names, I was like, who are they? I
Yeah.
am not familiar with these people, right? Because I
Mm.
mean, the way you're making it sound is similar to how celebrity chefs, uh, how
Yes,
they are a household name, no? But this is not
completely.
familiar to me at all. So I
Mm.
can't compare the was and is, but
Yeah.
I can talk about what the is like.
Mm.
So this what you shared about, a 20-year-old will do the job for you for as little as $500. The photographer that I usually work with, she's a millennial as well, named Abhirami. And Goldie, you are also familiar with her
Yes.
and her work.
Mm.
We got a makeshift photo shoot done when you had come to Bangalore last year. And one thing that she kind of tells me about is how it's a little hard for her to uh, get a lot of gigs because she needs to, while her interest is primarily in portraiture, like portrait photography. She does landscape, she does brand, she does product, mostly because she has to, or
Mm.
it's good for her in terms of sustaining her business. But if she had a choice, she would do portraiture, mainly that. And with respect to her, what I've noticed is that she never looks for the perfect shot. She looks for the most authentic shot. And I think you and I can both vouch for that being the way that she goes about with the photography because it shows she really captures that the essence of the moment of the person, of the dynamic. We've noticed it in the shoot that she did for us as well. And, you know, like as I'm talking about her, she actually put out a post on LinkedIn yesterday.
Yeah.
uh, my LinkedIn is open. I just like read it out. It's in the with the theme of AI, so I want to read that out. I think it's
I have read
relevant.
this post. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to read this. Have not read it. I'm going to read this out. Abhi, if you're watching this, shout out to you. You're welcome. So here's how it goes. Why I'm not worried about AI replacing me as a photographer. I've had fellow photographers warn me if you don't use AI, you lose work. Soon, AI will replace everything you do. Honestly, I'm not scared because what I bring to the table isn't just a camera, it's presence, it's sensitivity, it's the ability to feel a moment, hold space, and listen deeply through my lens. AI might replicate styles, but it can't replicate soul. It can't anticipate the little glance, the breath, the in between silence that makes an image alive. I'm content and confident that I have a diverse clientele that values honesty, essence, and connection to co create with intention. I love this post, Goldie. And
Mm.
as you said, I'm sure you loved it as well because it's so accurate to the way that she operates. And what's coming up for me is it's basically like this. So when platforms like Fiverr and Upwork came up, there was this belief that design agencies and established designers and all of these people are going to be losing their jobs because there's a
Mm.
platform that allows freelancers to essentially kind of like bid for projects is the way that it operates, right? And you can get it done for as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
While that is true, I feel like design is a lot more appreciated now. Design agencies are thriving even more than before now. And I feel like while these platforms exist, there is still very much a market for this as well, the design agency. And I
Mm.
feel like that's going to be the case for photography or anything else as well. Even now, with right now for my company Guiding Light, the Guiding Light Collective, we are doing a visual rebrand. We're getting like a new logo done and all that. It would have been very easy for me to just sit in front of ChatGPT, especially with this new, image update thing, and come up with something. But it may not be able to capture exactly what we wanted to capture. That's something that only comes with a person's expertise being in that space, and them also having to leverage AI. We can't deny it and not adapt, right? Because that popular saying, it's cliche but true, that AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will replace you. So these are a few things that are coming up for me. What I do know that is that photographers today, they can't really be trying to be super specific or really niche. They can have
Yeah.
one a deep interest in one direction, but I think they also need to be able to navigate everything else. I think breadth is becoming a little bit more important right now than depth in general. Of course, in specific situations, it'll be different, but as of right now, my understanding with respect to photographers, which is very limited, I'll be honest, this is what's coming up for me.
I think you've really just introduced and given us the upper layer of what's coming in part two. And I agree with you, because I think Abhi, who is the quintessential millennial photographer that we've spoken about, she carries with her the ethics of a photographer that wants to be very niche based, but she recognizes that that's not going to be possible if she only focuses on portraits. And at the same time, her post from LinkedIn, you know, also confirms this message of the human touch. I think the emotional presence of a person would never, in a million years, replace what AI photography can manage. So I think it's nice to have these young, individuals, professionals who still live by the traditional ethics of the arts, and truly believe in what we say, the oath that one takes as an artist to be true to who they are, and replicate the client's innermost unseen emotion through a photograph in this case. And I think the same is happening, in advertising, because it's transformed from what used to be TV, and print, and now it's shooting a TikTok. And the difference is a TikTok can take 6 days only to shoot, whereas before it was 6 months even to shoot a TV ad, and would involve so much staff. So these shortcuts is what I'm kind of focusing on now, in terms of how has this happened. Well, it's happened because time is money, and if you can manage to get your shoot out in 6 days rather than 6 months, well, it makes sense, I guess, to a certain degree, for consumers to not consumers, the uh, people who are the actual businessmen and companies to opt for those cheaper and quicker options. And when did this actually begin? This shift actually began in the year 2010, when Instagram fully took off, as their social media posts made the trend to replace these expensive advertising campaigns. Now, whilst, as I said, it was a benefit for the upcoming entrepreneurs, it also, because it reduced considerably their marketing budgets, it slowly made a dent in the salaries of our, Gen X creatives. Now, let's just make one thing clear. It could have happened to any cohort at the time that was in their late 30s or like mid to late 40s, but it happened to affect the Gen X creatives. So we don't really recognize the cuts until we sit and think about what happens behind the scenes. Much like a movie, right? Which is made And until you don't watch the credits, you have no realization of the village needed to put the whole production together. And this is exactly what's happening. Now, you're a musician, Lakshan. You know how much time it takes to come up, with a tune on a guitar. But in a world where, again, AI is ready to disrupt, I would like to hear your impressions about this in the world of music.
So I think with respect to music as well, it's going to be a similar fate um, to how it is for photography, advertising, everything else right now. It of course it takes time to come up with a tune and something that you like, something that's memorable, a particular way. And when AI is kind of coming ready to come at that as well, it will disrupt. But what I feel is that as a musician as well, you have to adapt because what choice do you have? And
Yeah.
I think in general, the world is moving from appreciating and rewarding specialists to generalists. And the reason I say that is because when I used to be playing my music uh, a few years earlier, I focused on a very specific genre, and that wasn't a very say lucrative genre. It's not a very popular one, and I wanted to kind of stick to that, and it didn't help. I needed to diversify, be able to pick up on other things and adapt accordingly. I did not do that, and it's like that quote, no, Goldie, something that's very misquoted often: "Jack of all trades, master of none." But the actual quote goes something like, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one."
Yeah.
And I think the age we're living in right now is that oftentimes
Yeah.
phrase, term used in that quote. So that's what is coming up for me. But I also feel that moving forward, people will appreciate human photography, human music a lot more moving forward. The reason I say that is because in 1996, no, this was like 97 is when like the chess world changed forever. But in 96, the number one player in the world, this Russian grandmaster named Gary Kasparov, uh, he had a match with IBM supercomputer called Deep Blue, a chess game. He won that first game. They had a rematch in 97. He lost that. So machines in 97 were able to beat the very best at that time, best in history chess player. This is 27, 28 years back now. Since that time, machines have gotten incomprehensibly better. You can't
Yeah.
even fathom how much better they are. But chess today is the most popular it's ever been. I think people are able to appreciate uh, the human element of all these things. And I think right now it's the pendulum has not swung fully to the other end. That's why there's a lot of this fear, rightfully so. And we are in that, I think, short term pain, long term gain kind of a space. This is what I believe. I may be completely wrong. Only hindsight will tell me. But I think someone who, like yourself, who has seen the world as a Gen X, especially, to be able to adapt to how things happen. I think that's the mentality we need to have moving forward. The Gen X mentality.
Yeah. And, as you were sharing the chess example, what's coming to my mind is maybe the emergence of a completely new niche in the world of work where a client would be able to decide whether they want their portfolio managed by an AI driven, uh, machine, or they prefer a real person handling their account or portfolio in this case, talking in the world of arts, I am saying. And we haven't seen that yet, but I suspect that could be something that could be coming up. And we'll just have to wait and watch. This brings us actually neatly into part two. And a lot of what you've said thus far is going to resonate now. I've personally noticed a trend actually where artists transition from being niche experts in their creative fields, these are the Gen Xers, to becoming, freelancers, only to then experience a decline in career opportunities. What this is clearly showing is that merely excelling in one area is no longer sustainable for creative professionals. Just as we mentioned, Abhi has spoken to you about this several times. So here, what's the alternative? Now, I would like our audiences to momentarily shift their focus from Gen X to Gen Z. One of Gen Z's standout qualities is actually their adaptability to the gig economy. What does this mean? It's when they are continuously learning new skills. This makes them adept to, at wearing multiple hats professionally, right? We had discussed this in our episode about financial savings, where we highlighted this adaptability. Unlike worrying about saving for an uncertain future, which is what most of us would think, Gen Z actually focuses on avoiding job obsolescence because they don't want to run out of skills. And I believe this insight is crucial for our Gen Xers who are beginning to face very similar challenges. It's clear that, when you are hardwired to believe your career is framed for one set of skills only, it can be hard to make that shift or to do a career transformation, especially given the inspiring professionals who have mentored you to believe this with the likes of Lindenberg and Leibovitz, etc. But of course, let's not forget, one of the greatest strengths of Gen X is their remarkable ability to reinvent themselves. They have made their lives and careers their most creative projects, thriving amidst constant change. We were never given a playbook. We had to create our own playbook. Why? Because we were the latchkey kids. Even our parenting was left to independence. So, although, as I say, change can be challenging, they have always been prepared to face it head on. Now, adversity is something they navigate without self-pity or entitlement. They instinctively rise, dust themselves off, and keep moving forward, determined to give their best. This resilience isn't a drawback. It's actually a hallmark of their generation, something that they are grateful for, I am grateful for. And as the world becomes increasingly complex, Gen X stands ready, as they always have, to tackle it with courage and grit. So if one combines this nonchalant resilience of a Gen X with the upskill mindset of a Gen Z, this can potentially prove quite the powerful formula. My personal opinion. I now want to read verbatim a comment I picked up from my research as I dive deep into this story. It's been written by a Gen X, and after I read it, Lakshan, I will ask you to tell me what you make of it. Okay? It's called Redefining Yourself. I graduated with a graphic design and sculpture degree in the early 1980s, pre-personal computer. I was forced to learn to design on the computer for print design work in publications and marketing in the 90s. By 2005, animation and web design were the hot commodity, and being in my mid-40s, I could not compete with the new graduates that were computer savvy. I used talents I picked up over the years and became an office manager. Whilst I understand their plight and empathize, it's nothing new. Just things are moving faster.
Yeah, it is. It is unfortunate, I suppose, the way that it's worded, because things are very much moving so fast. But what this person said about using talents they picked up and became an office manager,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like, so in coaching we have this um, concept or technique called appreciative inquiry, right? Where instead of
Yeah.
looking for what's going wrong, you're looking for what's working for you, what helped you get as far. I feel like this person did the very same thing, looking at the positives, what's serving them, and how can they redefine themselves moving forward.
Yeah. And I think what I picked up was uh, the crazy pragmatism in the paragraph. They didn't sit even for 1 second to self victimize.
Yeah,
They just quite quickly said, well, it is what it is, and we have to move forward.
yeah, it
you
is what it
know,
is.
which
Exactly.
is so notoriously, familiar to me, being a Gen X. So
Yeah.
I think that's what, is really coming through for me here. And now this does bring us to the end, to conclusions. What's clear is that there are too many people competing for fewer jobs. That's the reality. The world of art and media has visibly changed in the last 15 years or so. And the generation that has taken the brunt in this case is Gen X. I do believe this is the case for other generations too, though, because of the fast moving world we are in, with technology and AI running faster than we can, keep up with. Now, the solution lies in adapting, pivoting, upskilling, and all the action items that help you to reinvent yourself. There is a considerable amount of emotional turmoil that comes with this. It's inevitable, but Gen X were never the cohort to complain. They preferred to be pragmatic over being pushovers. The future is happening, and artists are turning into therapists. I do leave you with a question. What other careers or cohorts will experience a crisis moving forward? As our audience, I invite you to leave that as a comment in the episode show notes. And maybe then, when this happens, our Gen X wisdom will serve and help others. Because, folks, as you know, that is how we truly mind the Gen Gap. With that, we've come to the end of episode 32 of Mind the Gen Gap podcast. I've been your host, Goldie.
And I've been your co host, Lakshan. Thank you so much for listening and watching and tuning in all the way to the very end. And please remember to share this episode, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star rating. This is season 2, and we could not have made it this far without you.
Muchas gracias.
See you in the next one.
Hasta pronto.
Bye.